So this week we've got our week 2 garden tour, which for most of the plants is actually week 6 that they've been in the garden. I will start off by showing you everything that we've got going in the greenhouse. We've got quite a few crops that'll be spending the whole summer in here. Sweet potatoes for one, and some melons too. And then we've got a lot that's just going gangbusters in the garden. I will tell you about some of the tomato varieties we're growing and show you everything that's happened in the last week. Enjoy! Okay, here is an update on what we've got growing in the greenhouse. Peppers, more peppers, and more peppers. And then down here we have tomatoes, which are getting quite large. The plants even have some pretty good sized tomatoes on them. And these little cherries, I expect, will start ripening soon. Then we've got some melons down here. This is cantaloupe. And then we've got a Kiku chrysanthemum melon, moon and stars watermelon. The fun thing about the moon and stars is not only do the actual watermelons they produce have little yellow spots on them, but the plants actually have little yellow spots on them. And that's what the watermelon will look like too when it's big. We've got our sweet potatoes, which I just added more straw to yesterday. I just keep adding more straw and rolling up the height of the bag. Got some healthy looking eggplant back here. This guy is huge. Wow. And then over here we planted peppers where I had previously had salad greens, and they're starting to get established. We've got our potatoes and just our flower baskets. And then here in front of the garden we have cabbage. And despite the cabbage worms, it is starting to get a pretty legitimate head on it. It's probably ready to harvest soon. And then we've got our onions, and these were planted from seed, not from the sets you buy at the grocery store, and they're doing really well, much better than the ones we grew last year. And then we've got our peppers. Right here we've got some banana peppers that are already getting going. And we've got our beans. These are the main beans that actually have grown at this point. We've got more started in the greenhouse to replace all the ones that didn't grow. And then along this line, we've got our tomatoes. And I will start by explaining some of the varieties we've got here on the tomatoes. This first one, you can see the stem is actually purple. This is an indigo apple tomato. It produces tomatoes that are really high in anthocyanins, and they will be purple. We've got, this is a great white. It produces tomatoes that are white when ripe. This is a vintage wine. It's of famed Brandywine heritage. This is Green Gables. It actually produces a green when ripe tomato. These two are Stump of the World, which is a pink potato leaf variety. Then this one here is Smiley. That's one we grew last year, and it is the first to have ripe or to have green tomatoes on it. And then we've got Lucky Cross, which is also of Brandywine heritage, potato leaf. Notice the black spots on this leaf. I went through actually last night and pruned a lot of the leaves that had this discoloration on it. That is early blight, and it will spread. So typically when you see that, you want to cut off any foliage that has that on it. Let's see. And then next we have Cherokee Purple, also has some tomatoes on it already. And then we have Cherokee Green, followed by Cherokee Chocolate. And then break from tomatoes, we've got zucchini, carrots, several different varieties of basil, another cabbage, a volunteer tomato that came up on its own, more carrots, zucchini in the corner, tomatoes that we had extra space for, nasturtium in the back with the funny looking leaves. Actually, I think they're really cool. And we've got some pole beans here that are finally getting going. And more carrots and another zucchini. I believe that's a yellow zucchini. And then we've got more tomatoes. This first tomato is Riesentraub. It's a cherry tomato. And then we've got in the front 2 dwarf tomatoes. Now you can see this is what I expected a dwarf tomato to be like, very stocky and sturdy. Some dwarf tomatoes don't always follow that. This one is just all over the place. It's huge, so I need to come up with a better staking method. Anyway, the first one is Dwarf Mr. Snow, and the second one is Dwarf Gloria's Treat, which is the same one with the big tomatoes on it. Okay, so behind the dwarf tomatoes, we've got 2 San Marzano plants here. We've got Oregon Star, which is a open pollinated variety that was bred in Oregon for the cooler climate. We've got Orange Banana, which is another paste tomato, but they're actually orange. And then we've got Anna Banana Russian, which is a yellow, hence banana, yellow paste tomato. It's actually a heart tomato, so they're really huge heart-shaped tomatoes. And then we've got Church, which is a favorite from last year. That one's an all-purpose tomato. It gets to be 1 pound per tomato usually. And then we've got Hillbilly, which is a orange and pink striped beefsteak. And we've got Nepal, which is a pink beefsteak. And at the end we have Black Krim, which was one of our early producers last year. And then in this front row we have basil, subarctic plenty tomato, and beets, which are very, very crowded. Beets, the seeds are really big, and they're actually a clump of multiple seeds. So you don't think you're planting very many seeds, and then you get a ton of beets. That's because there's multiple seeds in one thing that looks like a seed. Then we've got peppers here. Some of our bell peppers are doing really well. I don't know why these ones are growing upright, but they are King of the North bell pepper and one of our healthiest plants in the garden. And then we have Nepali orange pepper. There is very little information on these online, and the information I was able to find online is that they are slightly hotter or about the same as a jalapeno. Well, I picked one last night, and I bit just the tip off. They are definitely hotter than a jalapeno. My mouth was on fire. So they might go in a salsa or a fermented hot sauce, but I will not be eating them fresh. And then we've got some more peppers here, and cilantro by the dwarf tomatoes there. Down here at the end with our cattle panel arbor, we've got our squash, and we were supposed to have pole beans go up the cattle panel, but we'll have to put those in from what's going in the greenhouse. We've got a lot of different squash here. I don't know quite where everything is laid out, but we've got honey nut, butternut, strawberry crown, pumpkin, kabocha, buttercup, and possibly a few others. Oh, delicata. And then we've got one that we're calling Rogue Monster, which was our hybrid squash from last year. And we are trying to grow that one out and stabilize the hybrid because it was so tasty last year. And then down here, of course, we've got our flowers. We've got irises, poppies, sunflowers at the back, and lots of sun, which is making that hard. And this is our cucumber trellis setup. Some of these cucumbers are finally starting to get going, and I planted a secondary batch of the same varieties. That way, once these ones start getting going and maybe start petering out, the next ones will be going strong still. And over here, we've got cucamelons and Armenian cucumbers on this. And both of those, I think, are a little bit warmer weather crops, so they're taking a lot longer to get going. And up in front, we've got garlic, some lettuce, onions, our strawberry patch, and more garlic and onions at the back, along with cilantro. And I'm letting this go to seed because the seeds are what you use in making coriander. I hope you enjoyed this second garden tour of 2022. It's mid-July and the garden is going crazy and getting ready to start producing. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I'll be able to show you some harvests of our various crops. I expect cucumbers and cherry tomatoes will be up first, or maybe some beans. So see you next week.